You're the guy people call when they need a helping hand, moving furniture, unloading a truck. But lately, your shoulder's been acting up, and you're the one who's calling for help. And that's the moment you realize you can no longer shoulder the load.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for orthopedic care, with a range of surgical and non-surgical treatments. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This podcast is brought to you by Sway, artfully crafted, ready-to-drink cocktails from Mad Tree Brewing. This is episode 772, Meal Prep 101.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This podcast with Amanda Valentine.
What up, homies? Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This podcast. I am Amanda Valentine, and let's talk about meal prepping, baby. So I have been meal prepping about 8-9 years now. So I would say that probably, I guess I would be expert level when what does it say? You are an expert at something when you put like 10,000 hours into something like that. I would say I'm probably at that point with meal prepping, at least meal prepping for myself. So with that being said, I do want to say that meal prepping isn't for everybody. The way that I do things is not the way for everybody. It's the way for me. But I think the main takeaway from meal prepping is having some sort of plan and being prepared in whatever way that is best for you. So I want to get into that discussion, my method, and how meal prepping can definitely help your routine. But first, I want to tell you about my Pound This party, which is happening in Cincinnati at Mad Tree Brewing Saturday, August 6th, which happens to be the last day of my 30s. And I really, really hope that you'll come out and join me because it's going to be a really fun day. We're going to have multiple live podcasts. We're going to talk to Lindsay Bonadonna about mental health. We're going to talk to Sarah from Team Fit With Me, who is an amazing health coach. I'm going to talk about her in this episode as well. She's going to come out. She's flying in from Phoenix, and she is going to be here in person. And we're going to talk about macros and nutrition and meal prepping. And also Rochelle Fraboda, who has been on this podcast multiple times. She's hilarious, amazing, and so smart. And we're going to talk about sexual health, knowing your body. And it's just going to be a really informative day. Plus, we're going to have some workout components, but nothing too insane. So we're going to focus on mental health, physical health, and sexual health. And I just wanted to take a pause in a second and talk to you about why I wanted to create this event and this party is I feel like usually when you go to like a health or wellness event, it's so fitness related of like, let's just work out for 3 hours straight, or it's going like to the Arnold where it is just like everybody's a bodybuilder. And I'm like, what about just the rest of us that just want to be like healthy? And there's no judgment on how old you are, you know, your age, your weight, your sex, your ethnicity, like any of those things. It doesn't freaking matter at all. We just want to have, you know, live a healthier life and have information on how to do that in a fun way. And so that's why I wanted to have an event that I felt like was for everybody, including myself, of like, let's just talk about overall health and wellness. Let's talk about meditation. Let's talk about sleep. Let's talk about hydration. Let's talk about physical fitness. Let's talk about nutrition. Let's talk about sexual health. And let's also have some cocktails. We're going to drink some Sways from Mad Tree. We're going to have birthday treats. We're going to have snacks. We're going to have lunch. And so I just wanted to have a day that's just basically what it feels like to have a healthy lifestyle, which is balance. And included in your ticket is a free $88 pair of leggings from Me Active. So if you want to think Athleta, Lululemon vibes, except Me Active is my friend Erin, and she's local here to Cincinnati. And a portion of all her proceeds go to women's charities, which is amazing. So that's included in your ticket. Lunch, 2 Sway tokens, lots of snacks, surprises, good information. Everybody's going to leave with an information packet, swag bag full of goodies, and just a day of freaking fun. And it's my 40th birthday party. So we're also going to rage. So I really hope that you buy a ticket, which you can find the link in the bio here at Eventbrite, or you can go to poundthis.com. There'll be a Pound This party link at the top there. And with that being said, because I am talking about meal prep in this episode, up from now till the party, if you're listening to this episode, if you buy a ticket to my Pound This party, you'll get a free copy of my e-cookbook, Meal Prep Cookbook, which is Bite This. So if you buy a ticket to the Pound This party between now and August, I will give you a free copy of that cookbook, which includes 16 recipes with shopping lists, ingredient list, and then videos with a tutorial of how to make all of those meals. So that is a $29.99 value. You will get that for free if you buy your Pound This party ticket. And if you do want to come, I would just encourage you, please buy tickets sooner than later for my own mental stability. Everybody's like, oh, everybody waits till the last 2 weeks to buy tickets. I'm like, go do that. Oh my God. Please buy your tickets now if you want to come. I would love to see you there. We're going to have an awesome time. So now that I spent several minutes talking about that, you're like, oh my God, Amanda, just talk about the freaking meal prepping. That's why I wanted to listen to this episode. So here we go. Okay. I promised we talk about meal prepping. So this is it. So for me, I feel like the meal prepping has been just seriously the main staple and a pillar of my healthy lifestyle, including losing over 100 pounds and maintaining for so long, because it's an anchor point for me. And it's just so helpful for my mental health. And so it's not so much into like, oh, I have to meticulously weigh and measure everything and it has to be down to that. There is components of that, and I fluctuate in that as well. Also, I'm one of those people that if you put one portion, you put a whole pizza in front of me, I will eat the whole thing. No problem. Go right past that point of pain. And I will just keep on eating because I am not going to throw any of this away and it's not going to go in the fridge. But portioning things out and having here's a stop sign for me is incredibly helpful. And that, again, that's just me and my journey of like, when there's a stop sign and I pause and I'm like, oh, I am full. No, I feel good. No, I don't need to eat to the point of pain. This rules right here. It's really helpful for me in those aspects. And there's certain times too where you're learning the process of, portion sizing and stuff like that, which is frustrating, especially if you don't have like a coach like Sarah to help you through it, or like myself. It's one of those things where you learn of like, okay, well, I'm going to portion this out. And if it's like 45 minutes later and I'm still really hungry, like you need to be eating more. Like the goal is not to be starving all day. And all of these 1,200 calorie diets a day and juice cleanses and all that stuff, when you're just freaking hungry all day and you're just like, I would stab somebody for a Snickers bar. Like do we want to live that way forever? Like, absolutely not. Like, that's not a good way of living. But understanding of like, hey, I eat this, I'm fueling my body, I feel satiated, I feel good. And maybe 2 to 3 hours later, I'm hungry again. That's normal. You know what I mean? Like, that feels more regulated. That feels more balanced. Not like I'm eating, spike, crash, starving. I'm scrounging around for whatever food I can get. Oh, but I'm telling myself I can't have it because if I do, I'll gain weight. And the cycle. Like, I think that we've all been there. I thank you for listening to this podcast. I think you've been there with me. So for me, I didn't meal prep at first. For me, it was just get healthy things in your face. When I first started my journey, it was just like, I know I don't eat vegetables. How do I get them in my face? Stir fry was my main way. I made apple nachos a lot too. Apple nachos are freaking awesome. And it's basically slicing up an apple really thin so there's more pieces. For me, again, binge eating, I like quantity. Drizzle it in some nut butter, put on some mini chocolate chips. If you fancy, put on some coconut flakes, and you got some apple nachos, and they're freaking awesome. And so stuff like that, I was just like, I don't eat fruit, I don't eat vegetables, I don't drink water. How do I get more into that in my face? And so that's how it kind of started, was just kind of getting those things, again, small steps of how do I get those into my body more. And then it was like, okay, I need a more regulated way to do things. So how I meal prepped at first is different how I meal prep now. For me, it just started off, I was doing a morning show on the radio, and I'm like, breakfast is hard. For several morning shows, my breakfast used to be a couple cans of Coke. So it's like, I didn't plan ahead on that at all. Like, I'm going to have to like make breakfast ahead of time. I'm going to take breakfast to work with me, so I know what the hell I'm doing. So it started with just prepping out breakfast, and then it became like, wow, this is super helpful. I really enjoy this. And then it became to where I prep out most of 5 meals a day now. And how my current method of meal prepping works is, again, I go through different phases and seasons all the time. So I go from like intuitive eating to macro counting to calorie counting to being really meticulous to being really relaxed. And it's just depending on what my goals are, what season of life I'm in, or what my mental state is. Nothing stays the same forever. And especially not when you're trying like health and wellness and fitness and all that. I mean, because, the life throws you curveballs like global pandemics, and you have to figure out a new way of living. You know what I mean? So what I do currently I am counting macros. I am using Sarah as my health coach from Team Fit With Me. So if you have a problem where you're like, I don't understand macros, I don't understand how to portion, this is a pain in my ass, I don't have time for this, this makes me frustrated, this makes me gain weight because I have anxiety around it, which I've been there when I did Weight Watchers a couple times. I had so much anxiety over the points, I gained weight. And so I fully understand every aspect of that. But if you're looking for somebody that can help you coach you through that and give you advice and have you understand that, if you go to teamfitwithme.com/pound this, you can save 10% off of month 1 of all packages and plans. Not to turn that into just a total ad. I know that sounds like an ad, but seriously, if you need some guidance and you want a health coach to help you through that kind of process, Sarah is fantastic with it, with hormones and all that stuff. Like, she's just a scientific wizard when it comes to all to it, way more than I am. And so, Sarah is helping me with my macros currently, but what I do is I'm just a fan of MyFitnessPal. I like that because all my crap is saved in there. I tend to eat the same things a lot over and over again out of personal preference. I will eat anything. I will be very food adventurous. I love trying new foods, but when I'm like just cooking for myself and meal prepping for the week, I tend to stay somewhat kind of boring. At least I think it's boring. I like plain oatmeal, and I know that's not everybody's jam. So what I'll do is I take MyFitnessPal, whether you want to count or whatever in there, doesn't matter, or you take a notebook, whatever. And what I do is I kind of think about, since I prep for the whole week, because again, that helps my anxiety of like, I'm having a plan for the whole week. I like that better than just feeling like chaotic. Again, you do whatever you need to do. Just explaining my process here real quick, and then I'll give you some examples of what else, how else you can do this. So for me, I open up MyFitnessPal. I think, okay, what do I feel like eating this week? Or I'll even go through the highlights on my Instagram page. If you can go to You Can Pound This, and you're going to see some of my recipes and foods and stuff in there, or my meal prep cookbook, wink. And so I'll be like, oh, damn, I haven't made those turkey meatballs in forever. I forgot that I made those. Or this like chicken lime fajita soup. Oh, that sounds bomb. So sometimes I'll use myself as an inspiration, and I'll forget about some of the foods that I make. Like, I just brought back my egg white waffle, and I used to make those like every freaking day. And then I just felt like it just got out of rotation, and I'm like, let me put that back in rotation. Pinterest, I use a lot of just for like inspiration. TikTok now too. I mean, you can use Instagram too. If like, even if you just look up healthy meals, or you look at meal prep meals, or I'll look up those sorts of things or follow those hashtags just to kind of give me an idea for something. Most of the time I do not make those recipes because I don't like making recipes that has like 15,000 freaking ingredients. Simple as possible. If it's not simple, I personally won't do it. Like, to make a one-off meal and make something kind of crazy, yeah, that's fun. When I'm trying to figure that out for a whole week, hard pass for me personally. That is way too much math. I don't want to do that. So I try to keep things simple, or see something that I feel like is like, that looks kind of complicated, but how can I simplify it and make it a way that still tastes good, but I'm not going to jack with it that much. So I'll kind of think of like, okay, here's kind of what I feel like eating this week. Like, do I feel like eating oatmeal for breakfast, or do I feel like eating bacon, or do I feel like eating overnight oats, and kind of like feel out where I'm at. And so I'll open up my Fitness Pal and kind of create a menu in there of like, okay, so like this week specifically at the time of recording this for breakfast this week, I am making, it's like an omelet breakfast burrito. So I am like, okay, well, that sounds legit. So I put in there like egg whites. I personally don't count veggies unless they're starchy veggies like peas and corn, stuff like that. But and peppers and broccoli and asparagus, all that stuff, I don't count personally. So I put that all the stuff in there. I'm like cheese, tortilla, and I put that in my Fitness Pal. I don't really fidget with the amounts yet. I'm like, okay, that sounds good for breakfast. For me, I eat 5 meals a day. Okay, so what do I want to eat for meal number 2? Meal number 2, I'm like, oh man, do you know what? I kind of want like a chorizo chipotle bowl. Okay, so I'm going to make it out of turkey. I put in the turkey in my Fitness Pal. I'm going to put in rice because I have rice already. I try to also think about like what ingredients do I already have because everything's freaking expensive. And if I don't have to spend more money than I have to, I absolutely will not. So I also like, what do I got? And sometimes I'll think of that too of like, well, I got a bunch of rice. What can I make around rice? Which is actually what I did this week where I was just like, what can I make with rice? Ooh, like a burrito bowl sounds good. So we're on a theme here so far, breakfast burrito bowl. And I just take all the ingredients and kind of slap them into my Fitness Pal. And then for meal number 3 for me this week, oh my God, I'm already forgetting what I'm doing. Oh, I do a smoothie. So then I kind of put in the smoothie ingredients. Meal number 4, I'm doing like a high protein, low carb pasta and chicken. And then meal number 5, I'm doing, this is a thing too, where I started making this when I did South Beach diet, like a babillion years ago. And, I love when it comes back into rotation because it's so freaking good, is ricotta cheese. I squeeze some fresh lemon juice in there. And then I use some vanilla stevia drops. You don't have to use that, whatever. Just kind of sweetens it up. Or just use like a packet of stevia and use vanilla extract if you want, whatever, do your thing. And then mix that all up. And then I put raspberries and lemon zest on top. Because, I'm fancy. And so I put all those ingredients in there. And because I am counting macros for me personally, then I'll go back and fidget with all of the amounts of things. So it's like, oh, maybe like turkey was automatically set at like 6 ounces, but it makes more sense to have that at 4 ounces. I know for me, like, again, you just knowing yourself of like what fills you up and what doesn't. Like if there's anything under 4 ounces of a protein, I am hungry a freaking hour later. So, and other than like a protein powder. So it's like if I'm using turkey, chicken, any sort of, animal protein like that, like it has to be a significant amount for me personally, or I'm just going to be hungry later. So I know that cue about myself. So it's like knowing that and then just kind of going in and dialing it all in. Sometimes it's much easier than others. I will say that I'm obviously much faster at all of this now because I've been doing this for freaking years. But it can be very frustrating. And I fully understand that. And I could see where you're trying to figure it out and you're just like, F this, I'm ordering a pizza. I totally get it. And so it's one of those things, at least for me and my mindset of like, okay, thinking about I want, designing that menu, fidgeting around with my macros if I'm doing that, which currently I am. That whole process is going to take me about a half hour. So I sit there like Saturday night, Sunday morning, because I usually buy my meal prep food those days. And I'll knock that out. Then I'll make a grocery list immediately of all of the things that I need to go. I'll go get the groceries and then I'll come meal prep all of that. And not everything has to be made in time. Like the smoothie, I'm not going to make ahead of time. If you make smoothies ahead of time and put them in the fridge, you're going to barf by the end of the week. How gross. They're going to get so nasty. Don't do that. So it's like taking the things that I can prep out, like the rice and stuff like that, and prepping that out. And that just saves me so much time and gives me structure. So that's how I kind of design that, is to like prepping the things out that I can in mass and not with others. If you're one of those people that get spooked out about eating the same thing every day, hey, I totally get that. I understand that I am in the minority there. You don't have to do that either. You can prep out your proteins no matter what it is. It's tofu. I wouldn't recommend fish in bulk, but like chicken and stuff like that. And you can cook it in bulk or get a rotisserie chicken and pick that thing apart and have all of that for bulk, and then have a container of your, bulk carb, like you think like a rice or your beans or your couscous or your quinoa or whatever that is. And then you can have like a mass container of your protein, your chicken, your beef, your turkey, your tofu, your seitan or whatever that is, that you want to eat as your protein, and then have that. And then I would map out for the week, how am I going to use this in different ways? Well, hey, Monday night, I can make a big old honkin' salad and use some of that chicken on there. Cool. Awesome. Got that done. Okay. How about the next night? I'm like, man, you know what sounds really good is like making like barbecue chicken sliders. So like for me, I find so much more use out of shredded chicken than I do just like grilled chicken. So then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to take some of the shredded chicken, put it in a pan, put some barbecue sauce in there, heat it all up, and then put it in the bun and load it with goodies. And now we're going to have barbecue chicken one night. And then the next day could be like, okay, well, I'm feeling like, what if I did like a chicken salad? And then, use your mayonnaise and your veggies and all that other stuff and make some, eat that with your chips or wheat thins or whatever you want to do. Put it on toast, whatever, do your thing. And so like you can take that one thing and you've prepped it out for the week, but you can make multiple different things out of it. And so that I feel like makes things a lot easier. Or again, if it feels super overwhelming, which it can, just prep out. I would start with the hardest meal of the day. Is it breakfast? Is it lunch? Like, where do you find that you slip the most? And see if you can prep that out every day. And even if you don't feel like cooking anything in advance, can you chop the things in advance? Be like, I know for me, like I love making tuna salad, but I don't know why it feels like it drags on my soul to chop up like celery and onions. So I will chop all of it up when I'm prepping on Sunday and put it into individual little baggies or containers. So it won't give me any sort of barrier to be like, oh, I don't feel like it seriously takes like a minute and a half and I still just don't want to do it. And I know that about myself. So it's like knowing those things about yourself. Like, can you just chop the veggies? Can you buy frozen? What can you do that's going to help alleviate that roadblock when you get there and you're like, oh, I don't feel like it. So I'm just going to pound like 10 pounds of Chinese food tonight. You know what I mean? Not saying you can't do that. Do what you need to do, but you know what I mean? So it's like, what can you do to prep that out? Or even just having a plan. I had a client and I thought this was an awesome idea. She had a whiteboard in her kitchen and for her prep, her and her husband would be like, okay, let's map out just what we want to do for meals this week before we go shopping. So it's like they didn't even prep any of the food ahead of time. Just making, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And like, hey, let's make pasta this night, or let's do grilled chicken this night, or let's do barbecue night here, or whatever it is, and just mapping that out and having that written down. And even though you don't have the whole rest of the day, if that's not your problem, be like, at least we know like every night we have an actionable plan for dinner. And if you end up going sidetracking, going, oh, like, hey, well, we got invited out to dinner. Like it's fine. At least you have a choice and you have options. And I feel like that's what helps me a lot with meal prepping as well. Is especially, working when I worked in radio and, you're in an office setting and especially at a radio station, there's just free food all the time. And none of it is healthy. And so it's like, oh yeah, dude, like all this stuff looks really freaking good, but I have my meal prep in the fridge and it's not like there's this hard imprisonment. I am handcuffed to this meal prep I have, but it's like, but at least I gave myself the choice. Like, okay, there's free pizza in the kitchen and I also have my meal prep in the kitchen. I at least now have options. How am I going to feel physically and mentally on the outside of each of these decisions? And that's what helps get me through a lot of those things of like, okay, well, if I eat the pizza, that pizza in particular is not the greatest. The best thing about it is that it's free. And if I eat it, am I going to beat myself up afterwards of like, you can't stick to anything. You got meal prep and now you're wasting money. And of course you ate the pizza. Am I just going to treat myself like a piece of trash afterwards and have all this negative self-talk? And am I physically going to feel like lethargic, feel like, oh, my pants feel too tight now. I feel uncomfortable. Like, am I going to feel that way on the other side of pizza? Or am I going to feel like, hell yeah, free pizza. I feel awesome. That was a great decision. I feel full. I feel fantastic. and then make a decision from there. Or is it one of those things of like, I got meal prep in the fridge. If I eat this, I'll be happy. I'm not tossing that money down the drain. I'm going to be happy that I've made promises to myself and I stick to them. I'm actually excited about the food I'm meal prepping. It's one of those things, if you're meal prepping meals and you think of like, oh, this is diet, quote unquote, and healthy, and you're like, oh God, I just have to choke this down because what I have to do. Of course, you're never going to choose that first. You're going to take the crappiest free pizza over some boiled chicken and broccoli. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to make meals that you're also like hyped to eat. So it's like, even though my meals are probably boring to so many other people, I enjoy them and I'm excited about them personally. Sometimes will I choose free pizza over them? Hell yeah. I mean, I'm a human. Come on, you got to live. But it's like, I'm at least giving myself a good option. So I feel like it's those sorts of things too. Like, you don't want to create a prep for yourself or a process that feels imprisoning, or you feel like, I'm doing this because I have to. I'm doing this because I need to look this certain way. I'm doing this because I need the scale to say this thing. Like, it is ultimately at the very end going to set you up for failure. So it's like, what can you do that is motivating, that is helpful to you, but is also not going to tear you apart? And that is a middle ground that I will say is hard to find. And it's just practice. It's experimenting. And that's why I've been meal prepping so long, is it's one of those things, once I started doing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is helping me in so many freaking ways. And it's, again, it ebbs and flows and it changes, and my relationship with it changes, but it's always stayed some sort of constant, because it just makes me feel good mentally and physically. And I get excited about creating new meals. I get excited about just the process of it too. Like, when I'm doing meal preps and I'm showing the whole process on Instagram, I'll go back and forth with how I feel about that too. Sometimes it's very, very fun for me and I get very silly and I have an awesome time with it. Other times I'm like, this needs to be me time, and I just want to have my headphones in and I want to listen to a podcast, or I want to listen to some yacht rock, and this is just for me. So for me in my personal journey, it's like, I do this for me and to take care of me, and it's something that I love. And if I find it's getting to a place where it's hurting me mentally, then I have to take a pause and reevaluate. Like, you don't want to do these things because it feels awful, because you're not going to keep doing it. And how do you pivot around it? How do you switch it? How do you change things up? And that's a lot of self-awareness. And just, again, finding what works for you. Is it more helpful to do meal by meal? Is it more helpful to do those bulk sort of things? Is it more helpful just to chop the veggies? Is it more helpful just to have a plan written down? Do you have the plan written down in a notebook? Do you have the plan written down in your kitchen? Like, it's all of these things that it's so hard doing this podcast. This is meant for mass audience, not an individual. And every individual has a different way of doing things that is helpful to them. So there's just so many different ways to do this that can be helpful. And for me, I will say, I have those giant stick-'em Post-it notes. I fell in love with those a long time ago because I did so much brainstorming with radio shows, and it's just helpful for me to see stuff visually. And so I really like those things. So I've had them for that purpose. And then I'm like, okay, well, it's helpful for me to write out my meal prep for the week, and I stick it in my kitchen every single week. And so not only on Sundays when I'm prepping things out, I can reference it and look at what I'm doing, but also from day to day to remind myself what I'm doing. And for me, it's pinned up right by the fridge. Not that I forget that I'm a meal prepper at this point. Like, I got a concussion last year, but I haven't had that much memory loss, I think. But it's also one of those reminders of like, oh yeah, this is my plan. This is what I'm doing this week. You know what I mean? It's just one of those like little tiny things that for me helps. And I think that when we think of anything health and fitness, it's either like, 0 or 100. And I've been 1,000% guilty of that too. And I think it's like, oh, well, if I'm a meal prepper, I'm meal prepping hardcore, I'm doing the whole week. Like, it doesn't not have to be that way at all. Again, like, it can just be have a plan written down planning out what meals you want to eat on for dinners this week. It's just having a plan and being prepared for anything is going to help you out so much. And it's just like, with anything, with any sort of goal, whatever that is, of like, okay, well, what are we doing here? What's kind of the game plan? And I think it's also, again, it's also different what motivates you too is, do you have like certain goal markers in mind that you're trying to achieve? Or is it just like, I just want to be healthier. I want to have a different relationship with food. And it's one of these things. It's like, okay, well, if I'm regulating my food in this way and this gives me anxiety and this is creating disordered eating, absolutely don't do it then. You know what I mean? But it's knowing yourself of like, is this creating more disorder than it isn't helpful? Then you want to bail on that. Just because you hear the term meal prepping and you associate that with more healthy living and you're like, that's what it is. That's absolutely not what that means. It just means it's healthy if it's a healthy practice for you. And I would never recommend anybody do something that is going to trigger any sort of disordered eating. For me, I just feel like this helps regulate me in certain ways. I have definitely learned, especially the past 2.5 years of having my own business and trying to figure things out on my own, that I work best. I need some sort of bumpers up. I don't like strict rules. But I need some sort of course to bounce around in. So it's like I need a lane, and I work best in a lane that I can swivel and pivot in and out of. And that's what meal prepping does for me, is it creates a solid lane for me to play around in. There's no punishment if I go out of it, and there's no celebration really, if I stay in it. And again, this is for me a forever thing of just like making healthier choices. Like there is no end mark for me anymore. There's no goal weight for me anymore. This is just living, and how am I living my best life? And this helps me stay in those parameters of feeling the best mentally and physically. And that's why I meal prep, and that's what makes me feel good. And that's why I share that so much. I guess not as much on this podcast as I do on Instagram, which again, you can follow me, you can pound this, because it's, we all got to eat. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to share my process, not telling anybody what to do or how to live or what's right or what's wrong. That's for everybody else to decide. I'm not living your life, and I don't know your circumstances. But it's like, well, if I'm going to share what I'm doing, well, maybe that's helpful to give you a helpful idea of how to do something or a way to do it. And that's, again, the purpose of this, specific episode is, I feel like the feedback I have gotten for years and years and years now about meal prepping is, oh my God, I wish I could do that. I could never have your discipline. Or could you just meal prep for me? And it's one of those things of like, if you're just looking at it the way that I'm doing it, that doesn't fit for you. Like I could see where that seems really overwhelming, and I could never do it that way, because my way isn't the way for you. So it's just finding what things work for you. And having, again, any sort of plan. Like if you're going to plan, I guess like a hiking trip, let's just say, and I was just helping somebody with if she's listening, hi, with food for her hiking trip of like, what can I eat while I'm hiking all day, where, I kind of want to stay in the parameters of eating healthier, and, I'm on a hike and I'm doing healthy things for my body. And it's like, well, so you have that sort of plan. Like you're just like, okay, well, I'm not going to go hike for 20 miles today with 0 things in my backpack. You're probably going to think ahead, right? Like I'm like, well, I should definitely have some water. And then just think of like, okay, well, I won't, when something is going to be in a hot backpack, I'm not going to pack an egg salad sandwich. Probably not. That's going to be a little funky smelling on both ends. By the time you eat that guy, after you've been hiking in the sun all day, I mean, your choices are yours. An egg salad sandwich on a hot hike probably isn't for me. But you know what I mean? So it's like, okay, well, can you take things that you're actually like excited about, like foods that you enjoy, and also notice that you're going to be torching through calories like crazy. And so like, you're going to plan out, if I'm going to hike, I'm going to have some precautions, and here's the things I'm going to put in my pack, whether it's food or first aid or any of those things, head lamp, stuff like that. So it's just kind of thinking like day to day like that, of just, even if you don't want to prep out a whole week ahead of time, just the night before. So if you're listening to this tonight, just think about, okay, tomorrow, here's what my day looks like tomorrow. What would I put in my pack for that? Like, how can I help myself? Like, I know I'm going to be in the car for a long period of time tomorrow. I'm running everybody around, and I don't have, like, we always hit up a drive-through because I've got nothing else to do, but I always feel awful for hitting up the drive-through or whatever that is. Be like, okay, well, can I pack some Go Macro bars with me? Can I pack some beef jerky? Can I pack some trail mix? Can I get some tuna packs? Or what are some of the things that's like, okay, well, I can just grab and go, like when I get in the car, and I can drink this or eat this, and having that just like some sort of structured plan of knowing I'm going to be in the car all day. What can I eat around that? And just think that through the night before or the morning of, and then there you go. And you have meal prepped. So meal prep doesn't mean prep every single meal out for the entire week. It can just literally be thinking of like, okay, it's 8 a.m. What do I need for 12 p.m. today? And map that out and pack a lunchbox. And guess what? You meal prepped. Even if it's a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know what? And you're in third grade. But peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are legit on hikes too, FYI. So I hope that is helpful. I know I get a lot of questions about meal prepping, and, once you get down to like specific questions, you are welcome to ask me anything. And I know I say that, and I hear people on podcasts say that too, and I absolutely never reach out to them. So I know that I ask for feedback as a person who also listens to podcasts that I've been listening to for over a decade and given them zero feedback. I know that's how it goes, but honestly, I would love if you email me or contact me. And if I don't email you back, then I probably didn't get it, or it went to my junk mail or something, because if I get an email from you, I'll write you back. Amanda@AmandaValentineBites.com if you have a more specific meal prepping question. And again, if it's one of those things of like, tell me what I need to eat today, I don't know. I can't answer that. That's where you would need a health coach like Sarah, because it's like, how old are you? How tall are you? What's your sleep like? What's your stress like? You know what I mean? I don't know your weight, or where you want to be, or what your goals are, or what your metabolism's like, or what your backstory. I mean, that's one of those things of like, if you just ask a stranger point blank, tell me what to eat, and they have an answer for you. I mean, do with that information you want to, but there's a lot of factors that go into, planning out what you should eat and what you should not, and what works best for you. And not only having all of that information, but it's also your body changes literally every day. Especially if you're a woman, you're changing all the freaking time, month to month, baby. And so it's like, there's a lot of, regulation around that, and your sleep and your stress and all of those things. So, it's listening to your body, listening to your hunger cues, doing what feels good, that makes you feel good mentally and physically. And again, just having a plan and being prepared in a way that you feel helps you the most is what I feel successful meal prepping is. Again, if you need ideas or recipe ideas, you kind of want to see my process. I do that to the best I can, and as consistent as I can on my Instagram @YouCanPoundThis. And again, if you want a free copy of my meal prep cookbook, just buy a ticket to my Pound This party. That's happening August 6th at Mad Tree here in Cincinnati. And that link is in the show notes. Also, if you go to poundthis.com, that's there, or Eventbrite. Where that's located, or I don't know, all over the place, or just send me an email or DM me or whatever. I'm here. You can say hi. Again, as always, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope this was helpful. If you found this helpful, or if you know someone you will think will find this episode or any episode helpful, please share with your friends, share with your communities, share with your groups. That would help me immensely. And I hope that I can continue to create content that is helpful for you on your journey, because living a healthy lifestyle is not always easy. And, as I have lived through this and continue to live through this, I'm just hoping that my knowledge and everything that I've been through personally, and also now with, certifications and being a nutritionist and a personal trainer and all of that fun stuff, I can bring, just a knowledge base and can be helpful to the best of my ability. So again, thank you for listening, and I'll catch you later.
AmandaValentineBites.com